Kishan, my name is Ellen and I'll be correcting this essay set for you today. Let's take a look at what you did in this task 2, international marketing. Here's what you wrote. Global marketing often penetrates local economies and is therefore seen to be intrusive, while others argue the necessity and that it is an educational form of economics aside from learning about aspects of a country. Okay, in this essay, we'll discuss both of these points of view and argue in favor of the latter. All right, so you've got the right idea here with this introduction, but there is a problem with your grammar, which makes things difficult. The other problem is, I think it's vocabulary. And how can I say this? It's vocabulary and kind of your understanding of the topic. So let's look at this again. I liked your first sentence. I thought that was great. This one was really problematic, though, and I want to tell you why. So hang on, let me just highlight it so you see what I'm talking about, okay? So here's what you wrote. While others argue the necessity and that it is an educational form of economics aside from learning about aspects of comedy. This whole sentence is wrong because while is a linker that connects two contrasting sides of a sentence, okay, or of an idea. And you've used it here on its own without the contrasting idea. So what you should have done from a grammatical point of view is you should have connected these two sentences. However, clearly that would have made it a really long sentence and not such a great idea. So while grammatically that's what you needed to do with this while, in terms of the comprehension and the idea, it would have been a disaster. So that's the first thing I want to fix. The second thing I want to fix is the fact that the rest of the sentence is problematic. Grammatically, it's awkward, and also you are showing me that you didn't really understand what the task is asking you. So look at this. It is an educational form of economics. No, that's not what this means. And here is where IELTS is essentially testing your vocabulary in an indirect way. So the first thing I want you to do is I want you to look up the difference between economical and economic. Okay? They do have a very different meaning. So economical, just to kind of make your life a little easy, basically means inexpensive. Okay, so to say that it's an educational form of economics is totally wrong. That's not what this means. Okay, and then this whole aside from learning about aspects of a country, I thought that just like the syntax of this was awkward. That's what I was looking for, the syntax. So let's look at this again. Global marketing often penetrates local economies and is therefore seen to be intrusive. In contrast, others argue the necessity of this and that it allows people to learn about aspects of a country inexpensively. Okay, so that's really what you wanted to say here. In this essay, I will argue both of these points of view and argue in favor of the latter. Now, with the latter, you need to be careful because I know a lot of people love using this, the former, the latter, but in actuality, the ways that we can use this are actually rather limited. And I don't feel that here the latter really works because you have so many ideas here and so many things that you're saying. Which latter? The latter what? I mean, the latter idea. It just for me, it's not clear. And so I would have preferred something clearer here. I will discuss both of these points of view and argue in favor of international marketing. Okay? That would have been clear and that would have been a better way of doing this. So let's continue to your body paragraphs, shall we? All right. Please don't use to commence. It's really awkward. We don't use it. That's not how you use the word commence. It's not in this context, okay? So honestly, I wouldn't have put anything at all. I would have just left it and I would have started. Overseas marketing could potentially harm local economies, as some products or services could be proven better than local businesses. Okay, are the products from overseas better than the business or the products of the local bit? Do you understand? You're not comparing similar things. It's one thing to compare local businesses with foreign businesses, but here you're talking about products and services from overseas with the business. It doesn't seem like a parallel comparison to me here. You could have said could be proven better than those from local businesses. That would have worked and that would have been clear. However, this also creates a healthy competitive environment to learn about global competitors and find solutions to overcome challenges. For instance, Chinese car companies were seen to threaten the EU's electric car market industry because they are cheaper to consumers, yet EU car manufacturers acknowledge, no S, the issue and seek no, and seek to innovate better and affordable. No, you don't innovate. Okay, and seek to create better and affordable electric cars. Now, um, let me see what you're doing here. You are arguing supposedly about international marketing being invasive and intrusive, but you don't really. You only said that it could harm local economies. And then the rest of the paragraph is spent on how, no, it creates healthy competition. So you're not really discussing both views. To discuss both views, you have to talk about why there may be some validity to this argument. Okay? That's what you need to be doing here. You need to describe the view, why people think it's invasive, why people think it's intrusive, and that's what this paragraph should be about. It should not be about why that theory is wrong. I mean, the entire paragraph, because that's essentially what you did. You had one sentence focusing on, it could harm local economies, and then the whole paragraph is about the opposite. So it's not really effective in terms of task achievement. If you look at the band descriptors where it says covers all parts of the tasks equally, no, you're not. Okay. So not when you're doing something like this. So let's see the rest of it. Many countries around the world have different economic principles, which can be a subject matter in the field of economics. Okay. Moreover, this is largely attributed to cultural differences, language, and culture, which influence it's many things. All right, so it's influence local economies. For example, in Malaysia, digital marketing is seen to be effective over traditional marketing because 75% of its population uses. All right, I don't understand this paragraph. I don't understand. Oh, this is your misunderstanding of the word economical, I think. This paragraph is completely off topic. It's not what you need to be talking about. It shows a clear misunderstanding of what you're supposed to be talking about. And so again, it's a task achievement issue. This paragraph for me seems totally irrelevant. Okay. So, in my opinion, I do not believe that marketing campaigns from overseas intrude campaigns, plural, intrude on. Okay, so no S, intrude on local economies as these challenge the campaigns challenge local firms to learn and search for better economic and marketing strategies to face off competition. Okay, we'll talk about this in a minute. Based on the arguments presented, I strongly believe that international marketing should not be seen as being intrusive. It should be a topic for business students to learn how strategies differ across the world. Okay. So I'm seeing some good things here. I like your grammar for the most part. You have a lot of these basic errors where you're not putting a plural verb with a plural subject. So that's a problem. It's basic grammar. And so while examiners may kind of overlook an advanced grammar error, okay, they're not going to be so lenient with basic grammar errors. And let's be honest, using the singular when you have a subject that's plural is pretty basic, okay? So I want you to be very careful about that. There were a lot of good things here. The language did flow apart from those, instances. But for me, the biggest problem here is task achievement. 100%. Okay. That's where you had issues. Now, another thing I'm going to suggest, a couple of things. First of all, you really want to work with a 4-paragraph structure. So an introduction, a body paragraph discussing the side you don't support, another body paragraph discussing the side you do support, and then your conclusion. There's absolutely no reason to have a little itty bitty paragraph. It's one sentence. There's no reason to have it. Okay. So this is going to be an issue of coherence and cohesion and how you're paragraphing. Okay. So definitely not this. This whole idea should have been kind of intertwined with the paragraph in favor of international marketing. Okay. So that's another thing. Now let's talk about how you could have developed this, since I mentioned that for me the biggest problem was task achievement. When you're talking about why people think it's invasive and intrusive, you needed to go into detail about that. So you could have said that because these international companies that use international marketing have a much greater budget, they put these local businesses at a disadvantage. They cannot compete. Okay. Um, so say for example, and you can use an example, right? So you can say something like, when an internationally recognized company like Nike uses international marketing, but a local, maybe small family owned athletics company tries to compete, they cannot. Okay. They simply do not have the manpower and the finances to compete with a company like Nike. Okay. So you could use that kind of example. And therefore, this puts local businesses and companies at a disadvantage. Okay. And then you can talk about how international marketing often fails. Okay, because they misunderstand the culture of the country. Okay, so they may misrepresent. International marketing means that you kind of modify the message to the country you're advertising to and you're marketing to. Sometimes though there are international marketing failures. Okay, so you could say that a lot of times they get this wrong and people get resentful, etc., etc. Okay, and then you can get into some details about maybe how an international company tried to market to another country, but they really misunderstood the culture and the norms and the values of that society, thus offending them potentially. Okay, so those are some of the things you could have talked about. Obviously, that's not an exhaustive list, but those are some things you could have addressed. Now, let's talk about this here, because here's where you really just misunderstood the topic. It's a necessary and economical form of education, right? So what does that mean? Language, culture, and what's the other one? Yeah, language and culture, right? Spreading ideas, language, and culture. So you could have talked about how, when, for example, in my previous example, Nike, um, advertises to another country, the people behind the marketing campaign are learning about the country they are advertising to. And so the company becomes more aware, more kind of global, et cetera, et cetera. And then the people that are being advertised to are discovering new products, new services, maybe the culture of the country where the product comes from. Okay. So it's really an exchange of ideas, right? Okay. So for example, if Nike is advertising, say for example, I don't know, like a special racquetball shoe. I'm just giving you a silly example. Maybe the country that's being advertised could be like, hey, racquetball shoes, great. I'm not really a racquetball player, but I'd love to learn about it, etc., etc. So do you see what I'm saying? This is an exchange of culture and ideas. All right. So just to give you some ideas about what you could have done here. So basically, just to recap, I felt like task achievement was the major issue. All right. And then there were some issues with grammar, some of those basic grammar things. On the whole, your grammar was good. You had some of those basic grammar errors. And then, coherence and cohesion in terms of how you organized your paragraphs. This for me was not a paragraph, and this shows maybe not very strong paragraphing. Okay, so that's it for this essay. Let's take a look at your task 1. Okay, so here we've got a pretty simple bar chart. Okay, yeah, it's pretty simple. You've got 7 pieces of information, not really a lot happening here. This probably isn't the kind of bar chart I would have selected, but just because it doesn't really seem like something IELTS would give you, but that's fine. Let's just take a look at what you wrote. Okay. The bar chart illustrates the number of passengers. Here you go. The number of passengers that was served. Now, the number of passengers is a really interesting expression because I realize that the subject is singular, but in fact, a plural is implied. So you could say here that were served, the number of passengers that were served. Okay? And that's okay. Across it's 7 different airports. Look, count them, 7, not 6. So be careful. This is leading already to inaccuracy, and inaccuracy is going to affect your task achievement score. Okay. Overall, it is clear that all of these airports are major international airports, which is catered to support large numbers of passengers. Grammar. And also, I don't like that this is your overview. We're not asking you if they're major international airports. We're not asking you if they do support a large number. That's not what your overview should be talking about. Your overview should be saying something like, let's see, overall, Atlanta International Airport or Atlanta Airport served the most passengers. Or no, why don't we do this? Atlanta and Beijing served the most, while the remaining 5 were more or less at the same level. Okay, that would have been an overview. Let's see what you write. Strikingly, the Atlanta airport was reported to have not was reported to. You've got it here. So, strikingly, Atlanta airport served the largest number of passengers, whereas the airports in Hong Kong and Los Angeles, okay, have the least number of passengers served in the given period. Fine. That's fine. I'm okay with that. But again, you definitely want to get rid of this. All right? Not necessary. Just get rid of it. The number of passengers served in Atlanta was about 8 million people, comma, making it the, careful with your grammar, not the most busiest, the busiest airport, followed by Beijing with 500,000 passengers. Less, don't use the latter. See, we talked about this in your task 2. This is not the way you use ladder. Okay, you use ladder with things like the airports with the most passengers were Atlanta and Beijing, with the latter having 500,000 less. That's how you use it. Okay, you cannot use it like this though. 3 airports, don't use have. Look, here everything is in the past simple, and all of a sudden you're using past perfect. The past perfect implies that there's some sort of effect in the present, and that's not the case, or that this is continuing into the present. From what I saw, this is just 2014. That's what you said, at least. Here it is, 2014. So there's no reason to use present perfect here. In fact, it's incorrect to do that. 3 airports served roughly around 6 million passengers. These airports are located in Dubai, Chicago, and London. However, out of the 3, Dubai served, again, slightly more passengers than the other airports in this group. Fine. The airports to have served slightly less than 6 million passengers are in Los Angeles and Hong Kong, making it the least number of passengers that were served in 2014. Okay. So this is 174 words. I already told you that I wanted you to get rid of like this. That would have been like 14. You still would have been at over 150. So let's talk about this. You only had 7 pieces of information, okay? So while you economized and you kind of group things together, and that's a good idea in general, especially when you have a lot of pieces of information, I still think you probably could have maybe done a little more. In other words, there's really not a lot to work with here. So it's okay to extend and analyze a little bit. So here's how I would have grouped. And I think you did this actually. So you group these two together, totally agree with that. You group these three together, I totally agree with that. I may have just gone into some detail about how the two of these have the same figure. It's not a lot, it's not a big difference, but I still think you could have given that information, and then that was fine. That was fine. So this was okay with some minor issues. All right. So you have the right idea, but there were still some things I would have changed. Okay. So um that brings us to the end of this correction. I hope that it shed some light on your where you are with IELTS right now and with your IELTS writing. I know you said your writing is your biggest issue. So you do have some great elements, okay, like a strong understanding of what needs to be done. Your grammar, for the most part, with those exceptions that I already discussed, is good. Okay, so there's some other things that you need to work on. And I think that if we work together, we can help guide you so that you can overcome these issues. Okay, I hope that you'll look into the options to work with us, essay packages or the online course. Take a look, see what works for you, and I hope we can work together in the future. Good luck.